United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. First item tonight is the approval of the minutes. Approval of the minutes for the September 25th, 2013 work session meeting, September 25th, 2013 special meeting, and October 7th, 2013 work session meeting. Anyone like to remove any items? Someone like to make that motion?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Our first announcement tonight is the formal swearing-in of our new town manager, Pamela Nolan. I'd invite Ms. Nolan and Ms. Irons to the podium, please.
Raise your right hand, repeat after me, state your name.
I, Pamela Nolan,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will be true and faithful unto this state,
that I will be true and faithful unto this state,
and support the laws and constitution thereof,
and support the laws and constitution thereof,
and support the laws and constitution of the United States,
and support the laws and constitution of the United
and
States,
support the town charter and ordinances of the town of Narragansett,
and support the town charter and ordinances of the town of Narragansett,
and to faithfully serve as town manager for the town of Narragansett,
and to faithfully serve as town manager for the town of Narragansett,
to the best of my ability or until another be engaged in your place,
to the best of my ability or until another is engaged in my place,
or until I'm legally discharged therefrom, so help me God.
or until I am legally discharged thereof, so help me God.
Congratulations, Your Honor.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the, congratulations, Ms. Nolan, and welcome. Move on to the next announcement, the presentation of the Narragansett Historical Society by Matt Gray. Mr. Gray. Or Ms. Easton, I'm sorry.
I'd just like to say that this was our inaugural road race. Matt Gray organized it for us, and the Narragansett Historical Society was a partial beneficiary, and we're hoping that this will become a major event of historic proportions in the future. Matt Gray.
Thank you, Shirley. This was a first-year road race. It was quite successful, and we hope to be doing it for years to come. It's a beautiful course. Really showcases the town very well, I think, and we're honored to be able to donate money back to the Historical Society. So, we have a check for $1,625. Thank you very much.
And although we didn't put this on the agenda, we had our house tour last weekend. We had about 300 visitors, over 50 volunteers who also got to tour the houses. And we're going to be distributing T-shirts to the town council from the road race and copies of our booklet so that you get to know a little bit more about the houses. But I'd like a moment to thank the homeowners, Kristen and Brooke Connell, who own Sunnymead, Maeve and Jimmy Duncan, who own the Booth Roundhouse, Andy and Peter Frost, who own Jillian Lodge, or Fairlawn, as it is also called, Dr. Guy and Stephanie Lancelotti, who own Stone Lee, Lelia and Jerry Palmieri, who own Lasada, Joyce Pershey and Dennis Lynch, who own Angel's Wing, Sally and Andrew Meneses, who owns Let's Pretend, the wonderful Father Tyone, a pastor of St. Thomas More, Reverend Shobe, a pastor of St. Peter's Church. They let us use their facilities, and they were open all day. Thanks also to historians Jimmy Duncan and John Miller for their help in the write-ups. Our advertisers, whose financial support made the tour booklet possible. Patty Sylvia, who did the gate image and during the process bought our printer iCopy And that was, that was a fun and interesting exercise, and they did a great job for us. Bonnie Cameron, who, of Cameron Communications, who helped with the paid advertising. Marie Youngkin Waldman of Where's the Town for pitching in whenever, wherever, and however we asked her to. And it wouldn't have happened at all without Ted Wright and his trolley service down to Ocean Road and Newton Avenue. And all of our many volunteers, but most of all, I'd like to thank my two co-chairs, Sue Bush, who we call the procurer. She got all the goodies that we need, the booties, the bracelets, all the things, and she got all the volunteers, basically. She engaged Paulina Tadino, who also had a big part in getting the volunteers. One person, though, I do want to highlight is Joyce Pershey. She was the co-chair. She was our technical expert. She was our weekly meeting host and a homeowner. So triple, quadruple threat there, and she did a great job. So thank you to the town council as well for your support. And I don't know if everybody knows that the town of Narragansett was recently presented with a much-deserved stewardship award by Rhode Island, Preserve Rhode Island and Rhode Island Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission. So I just wanted to take a minute to throw that in. We're compiling the very positive feedback that we've gotten on the house tour, and we'll be getting that to you in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Presents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Joyce.
very much. Hey, Joyce, thanks.
Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eastham and the Narragansett Historical Society. The tour was terrific, actually. Went on it, and it was wonderful. Next item is a presentation by the Nature Conservancy regarding the walking trail at Whale Rock. I'm not quite sure who's doing that.
Yeah, I don't see anybody. Maybe Mike could just kind of tell about that project.
I just want to extend apologies that we did not confirm Cheryl Wheatler's attendance here today. Cheryl is the project coordinator for the development of the construction of the trail at Whale Rock. I did get a chance to speak with her today, and she had a time conflict. But she did let me know that they're about 80% done with the construction of the wooden walkways for the areas that are a little bit low and sometimes wet. And they're looking forward to making some sort of a more formal opening at some point in the future. She will be available for our next meeting on November 4th. If we can get it on the agenda, I'll work that out
Sounds
with
good.
Mrs. Irons,
Great.
and she'll be able to provide you with a much more complete presentation.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Now move on to the open forum. Please just state your name upon approach to the podium. Mr. Vangermish.
My name is Richard Vangermish on Osceola. I'd like to just follow up what Mike said. And I was told by Terry Fleming, Mike did a great job on the Whale Rock area. I've snuck on Camp Vonham a couple of times, obviously illegally. Camp Vonham has ocean views as spectacular as any place in the United States. By the way, why it's reserved for those views are reserved for the Rhode Island National Guard alone is beyond my comprehension. One more, but Whale Rock gives you pretty much the full view of a truly unbelievably spectacular spot. And pretty soon we would hope we'd be ready to take some people there. Now, this is one more reason to spend what I call a green and blue day in Narragansett. this is a pretty brilliant green and blue. You start at the lighthouse, which we still haven't gotten permission to go in. We'll try with the new town manager. The interim manager didn't seem to really get excited about it, which is okay. But the lighthouse is truly a spectacular view. Unlike most lighthouses, there is just a tremendous land view and historic land view, as well as the ocean. By the way, the green and the blue is the ocean. You go to Black Point, which has been improved and truly beautiful. Go to Monahan's Dock, a nice spot where the South Ferry used to operate from the beach. Canachet Farm and South County Museum. Weave around to Narrow River, do the New Sprague Bridge, Bridgetown Commons, which really is spectacular, the Old Sprague Bridge. I don't know, okay, then we're supposed to do Whale Rock first, I guess, then the Old Sprague Bridge, and to Bonnet Point, whatever Bonnet Point is, and then so we're going up, and then we go to the Oceanography Beach. And there would be a day of great exercise, great history, and a great deal of fun. Now, I wish I could sort of do those 12 stops on foot in one day. We're going to leave that to Steve Wright.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
I just have been reading and I feel that the town is progressing down some of this bond craziness. I call it bond craziness. It's a mortgage. When you get a bond, it's a mortgage. We got to pay it back. Now, in the old days, they figured, well, we're going to get more residents in here, so if we have another 500 more residents, they're going to, the impact is not going to be so bad on us now. This is not going to happen now. We're losing population. There's no office buildings, there's no factories, there's nothing to draw. In fact, right now, families really don't want to come here now because the commute to Providence is a little too long. There's too many lights. So you're not going to see the growth because there's no more lots in one thing, and another thing is the traffic. So what came to mind was, what I saw is an educational bond. Yeah, our educational system wants a bond. Now a bond, well, they're thinking about it. I saw it in the paper. You know, fine, a bond. Again, I want to emphasize, when we talk education, I'm talking about English, math, social studies, science, something finance, so they know about the stock market, IRAs, something about computers, QuickBooks, something like that. This is one I want to make sure that you emphasize. We have to focus on education. And when I hear a focus on playing in the field is something that the father and mother can teach them. The father can take them to a game, and they can learn how to play. They can play out in the backyard. I don't think the taxpayer ought to be paying $2 million or whatever to build a playing field when we have educational needs that I don't feel being met. I'd like to see our children in there 8 hours a day. 8 hours a day I want them in there. It just seems it's going the wrong way, and I'm asking you to steer it in the right direction. Education, to learn something, not play. And the only way to stop this wrong direction is don't finance it. We don't finance playing. We finance working, something that's valuable, the education of our children, so they can compete out there and get a job when they get out of here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner.
Hi, Bill Gardner from Kinney Avenue. First, I wanted to welcome the new town manager, Nolan, to, I guess, her first real town council meeting. And I wanted to take this opportunity. I think this is a good chance to really begin to put our town in perspective. We have a new manager. I think we've, struggled a little bit with exactly what kind of makeup we were looking for in our administration. In the midst of that was the deep water thing. And I think one good thing that came up from the deep water was it was really the first issue where we looked at it holistically. Originally, it started out a project that had been running right through the system. There were some behind-the-scenes approvals, sort of like business as usual. And then when we started to look at really what deep water meant to the residents, to what it might mean to the beach, what it meant to the promises that people made when they were running for office, the cost of it, the value to the town versus the value of just getting a couple $1 million coming in. We really looked at that in a big picture way. And I think we really need to take that approach to heart, not only when it's a huge project like deep water, but when we're considering things even on the agenda today. There's 4 or 5 things that sort of tie in that when you look at them in a vacuum, you may say, oh, yeah, we should, it's just 100,000, we should just do it. But it might not balance in with something else. And I think, for instance, we're coming up with a comprehensive plan, that we're doing over for the whole town. And in that, we have all kinds of input on transportation issues, safety issues, the schools, the way the town looks like. And at the same time that we're trying to really decide what that big picture looks like, we have 4 or 5 or 6 little projects going off in all different kinds of directions that may or may not tie in to that comprehensive plan. There's been lots of money spent in the last couple of months where the comprehensive plan has never even been mentioned. And a lot of it has been on issues where people have brought stuff up at those meetings. So going forward, I would just, hope that with the town manager and, some of the change I see on the town council, that we start to look at how we spend our money. First of all, making sure it's done effectively and efficiently, and how it fits into what we really want this town to look like. Thanks, and welcome again.
Thank you. Mr. Alba.
Al Alba, 24 Eagles Nest Terrace. First of all, I'd like to congratulate our new town manager and the way she was unanimously voted in. If that time ever comes, to me, I'd like to see a unanimous vote out, not resign and all that sort of thing. This is the last, we had a real good town manager before, and they said, well, he resigned. Well, that's a lot of baloney because that's our tax dollars. As much as I like the guy, he was a good man. Also, he was also for the ice skating ring, which I've been pushing for the longest time. We have money coming in from the beach, and the thing is, we have to keep that going throughout the winter season. And a nice ice skating ring would be great. There's a nice spot for it, and almost every other area has one. Wesley, Providence, Newport, and I don't see why we can't have one here too. The only thing I can see is people here don't seem to not want tourism, which to me is totally ridiculous. That's where the money is. They come, they leave them, spend their money and leave. So hopefully we'll see something along those lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Shields.
Thank you. I want to mention 2 subjects quickly, both having to do with Deepwater Wind. I have a printout here which several of us, have issued, which outlines the gross profit that Deepwater Wind will achieve, and also the cost to ratepayers. So I would like to hand enough copies for the 5 of you and the town manager.
pass them around. Thanks.
As you will notice, after you have a chance to orient yourself on the sheet, there's an average gross profit to Deepwater Wind and DE Shaw of $507 million over 20 years. That's $25 million a year. So this represents our best estimate of what their profits will be, of what their costs will be, the construction costs, the return on investment, and the payoff period, and the net profit margin per year. So just keep that on file for reference. The other thing that I'd like to mention is that the CRMC meeting on September 24th, last 3 weeks ago, they proposed a change in the wording of the OSAMP process, which would specifically identify federal and state authorities as being the only source of information that they may use in coming to judgments on offshore wind projects. And I picked up on this as completely omitting any town official determinations that they can consider. I think this represents a 180-degree turnaround in what the assumption was before. They didn't pass this, by the way, but it is on their proposed agenda to change the wording. From having not identifying any authority at any level to proposing to consider only federal and state input and applications and public comments. So I think that may have been deliberate, or it may have been just an innocent mistake on their part. But I proposed, and I've sent copies to the town council, that they need to consider local input, they need to consider public input, both written and at hearings, which they should conduct, and to put all of this into a process so that nothing is overlooked in the CRMC's evaluation of offshore wind projects. I'd be glad to listen to your comments, either via email or however you wish to present them. But I think I'm going to be sending this to other towns in the South County area. In fact, all shoreline towns in Rhode Island, because I think they need to know that their voice will no longer be heard in any future. Now, this doesn't apply to the Block Island project.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you to the Deepwater Resistance, though, to Bob and everybody for staying on that issue and the Narragansett ramifications. So I do want to thank the efforts that have continued that we saw here at the town level, and we've kind of now don't have much of a role, only can be a voice now, but I want to thank them for their continued effort.
Mr. Traeger.
Good evening. Welcome to our new town manager. It's a very happy moment for me that there is a town manager, and I hope a permanent one for a long time. I hadn't come prepared like some of the gentlemen that have got up here, but the reason I come to these meetings, and originally when I first started to go to any kind of public meeting, was about public access. And I still feel it's an issue that is neglected by the state of Rhode Island, and probably our town a little bit too. It's a natural thing. People squawk and they get their way, and public access doesn't usually get taken care of, or it isn't a priority. Well, I just want to say that the reason I come to the meetings also is, and I went to South Kingstown last week, and I was there until 11 o'clock. And 75% of the meeting was spent on talking about roosters. Now, you might sound like that's boring, but when I went to the meeting, I was falling asleep at home. My wife said, "Are you going to go to the meeting tonight?" I said, "Yeah, I want to go." So I got up and I got over there, and when I got home, I was wide awake and stayed awake till midnight because I enjoy listening to dialogue, as some of the gentlemen have referred to here, what people think about whatever they think. I don't care what it is. But it turns out that that was a very interesting meeting, even though people were talking about chickens and roosters. But it was more than that, a lot more than that. And what I'm looking for in the future here is, with our new town manager, is follow through. When you start something, follow it through. And I won't say any more about that because I think everybody on the town council knows exactly what I'm talking about. I'm the guy from Jerusalem that doesn't, a few people might come from Jerusalem, but I'm here more than probably anybody else. And I'm wishing you the best of luck in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have a request to remove numbers 6 and 7. Any other requests? Make a motion to approve the consent agenda for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving to number 6 in the consent agenda, a motion to award the bid for stone ceiling various roads, the lowest bidder, Comer Contracting, Inc., at their quoted unit price for a 1-year period, and to authorize the town manager to sign the contract after review and approval by the town solicitor. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll move that motion. Second.
Discussion? Mr. Gardner?
The reason I wanted to speak about this particular motion is because it is important, again, back to what we were talking about, taking a comprehensive look at what we're doing in town. When Beta first did their came up with their pavement management program, the one thing they emphasized at the very first introductory meeting was that the early stages of the pavement management program are as critical as the reconstruction and the rebuilding of roads. In the earlier steps in that process, they mentioned were the crack sealing and the stone sealing. And I wanted just to find out if we've been following that part of the pavement program leading up to the stone sealing. Have we, because I've been just decided to start riding my bike again, and when you go on the town roads, there's a ton of cracks all over the place. And I realized that the first inventory was done about 2 years ago. And if the roads have a useful life of about 20 years, 10% of time has passed. So have we already spent all our crack sealing money this year that we had budgeted? And so are we ready, to have these people start doing the stone sealing? Because we need to, if we don't want to keep doing this bond issue thing to fix roads, we have to make sure that the preventative maintenance gets taken care of. So I'm in favor of this, but I want to make sure that we're taking those other steps that this is part of, because if we're not sealing the cracks, the roads fall apart, and then the stone sealing doesn't work. So I'd like to know where we are on the crack sealing program.
I don't know if we have an answer to that. Ms. Nolan?
I would ask Mr. Osterhout, he is here tonight, to come up to the podium and address that issue.
Thank you.
see if I can get that straight. Yes, the Public Works Department, working with the Engineering Department, is following the recommendations of the Beta Group report with regards to crack sealing and stone sealing, which is on the agenda tonight. So yes, we are following that, and we are also updating the database as we go along, so there won't be, a couple of years from now, a lot of questions about where were we and where are we now. We know where we are. As far as crack sealing, I can report that in the last calendar year, we have completed approximately $100,000 worth of crack sealing, and have completed, since we started the crack sealing program about 5 years ago, we have completed our first travel through the entire community to crack seal those roads that were the best candidates for that sort of treatment, where we would get the best bang for the bucks, which is to say that many of the roads which you see not crack sealed with a lot of cracks in them are probably beyond the point where crack sealing generates a good economic return. And is there another question there? I think
That's it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 7, a motion to accept the proposals and associated rates from professional engineering services firms in order to create a master list for upcoming capital improvement projects. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Gardner?
On this particular motion, I urge you to reject it. And here's my reasoning. When you look at the number of items on the agenda on at least a monthly basis, there's large flows of money that go without a deep level of due diligence. And what this particular motion does, it facilitates the situation where when we have a problem, the very easy solution is just to throw a ton of money at it. We see it, there'll be a few other instances in the regular part of the agenda, but more troubling with this professional engineering services idea is recently we reduced the qualifications of the people that work for the engineering department. So while we're in a situation where we're trying to protect the jobs of people who work for the town, we're lowering the value of the work they can provide to the taxpayers. So if you look at the agenda tonight, there's many instances where we're spending a ton of money for work that if we trained our people and gave them the skills, we might be able to do more of it in-house and not have to outsource so much. If you look at some of these numbers, $150 an hour, $180 an hour. That's why we ended up with that thing with Beta, where we're paying, what, almost 15% to do the engineering on that road, on the first phase of the roads. That's obscene. But when we make it very easy for these companies to suggest work to do with the town, to suggest that they're the sole source that can solve the problem, these are the kind of numbers we come up with. You're gonna, if we stay at that same rate just with the roads, you're looking at $2 million over the course of the road project. That could hire a very highly qualified engineer to do that work, the work that was done at the pumping station that we had to outsource because we didn't have an engineer that was familiar with pumping or electrical requirements. Look at the issues that come up with the roads. When we put in place an option that is so easy and so expensive, I don't think it's in the best interest of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
Do we want Jeff to explain the rationale behind it? Does that make sense?
I'm taking a deep breath. There were so many inaccuracies in Mr. Gardner's statement, I'm not sure where to start. The engineering department has not decreased its professional standards. I take great offense to that comment. Great offense. I'm
okay,
talking,
it's okay.
Mr. Gardner, not you.
Mr. Gardner. Mr. Ames? Can you come to the microphone?
I'm trying to. I walk slow now. If I'm not mistaken, is part of the engineering project for Wood Avenue into this? Okay. So we've been waiting for a while for this, and this is, I think, what this is designed for, the Wood Avenue and the South Trail sewer project, which, if I'm not mistaken, they do the engineering. We, as taxpayers, or the people using the project, will end up paying this money back. So the engineering, what this particular thing is you're familiar with Wood Avenue and South Trail, and we've had a tremendous amount of sewer issues up there. So included in this, and I think this is what he's trying to do, is be able to give us our engineering plan so we can move forward with getting it in without having making it more complicated. I think he's trying to make it as easy as possible. Thank you.
I know that after Hurricane Sandy, Mr. Cesarin and the engineering department saved the town, I think, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars by doing internal engineering. So I don't think Mr. Cesarin's one to waste town resources. So that's for what it's worth.
My view on this is the town could never hire the amount of skill, electrical, civil, CAD, GIS, the kind of breadth and depth at the rates for the volume of work that we do across each dimension, and keep them sitting around and waiting for the kind of volume of work that we would do. And the only way to get access to the kind of people that we need is to do exactly this. So I don't see any other option.
Mr. Traeger?
Well, I'm probably taking my life in my hands getting up here again, but I'm doing it anyway. This is exactly the kind of dialogue that just occurred here that disturbs me, in the sense that this is not the place for this dialogue. This dialogue should have already been taken care of, and I know we have a brand new town manager, so I don't expect her to even know what's going on right now, but this is Narragansett. This is Narragansett. This is what goes on in Narragansett. This kind of dialogue about these issues that are on this paper here. Now, I'm not telling you to be South Kingstown. I'm not saying they're perfect. But the way this would have gone in the South Kingstown, this exact thing right now, it would have been brought up as an issue, and then the town manager, which they probably already talked about it ahead of time, and then the town manager would address it. And I'd like to see more of that, because I want to know my town manager.
Thank you. Mr. Megermish. Thank you.
Well, my problem was with the word accept. To me, a meaningless word. It means we can take it in, or we could agree with it. And so accept is a useless word in this case. I mean, we can take in, we can approve, but accept is just meaningless, and it just can't be used. So please tell me, do we mean we take these things but not approve, or do we approve them when they come in? I don't know what you mean by the word accept, but accept can be used in the same manner as approve, which totally puzzles me because approve is used all the way up and down the list here. So it would be nice to know, what do you mean by the word accept?
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to old business, number 15, a motion to adopt an ordinance in amendment of Appendix A of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett entitled Zoning.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
And this is the, at least the second reading, I believe. So, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries. Number 16, a motion to establish and clarify the selection process for the fire chief of the Town of Narragansett.
Move that motion.
Second.
This is a continued discussion from last meeting. Not sure where we left off, but I think we wanted Ms. Nolan's input.
I've been on the job 5 days. I was well aware, I worked with Mr. Kerbel before coming down here and he did a very good job bringing me up to speed. He also gave me a file with all the information that has been collected so far and all the interviews that have taken place, and with the different candidates for fire chief. It's a critical appointment, critical to the town in every single way. Having just arrived on the scene, I've begun to meet the candidates. I have done some extensive study of what was compiled before I got here. I know how important this job is to the town and how important the selection of a new chief is. What I would like to do at this point is I would like to hold my own interviews with fire chiefs to help me and to look at the candidates that are internal to our system. At this point, the committees that have done the recommendation, done the interviews, conducted the interviews, have recommended highly candidates that are within our system right now, and I happen to agree with that philosophy. Unless there is an exceptionally good reason to go outside of the department, it has always been my standard to stay inside of the department if at all possible. I intend to follow that unless I discover something that would make it necessary for me to go outside the department. So with that in mind, I want no procrastination on this whatsoever. I'm not a procrastinator. I never have been, and I won't be. Yet I want to do a very thorough job of getting to know the candidates because it's so important to this community. So I would like to propose that I can continue to conduct the interviews and set up new interviews with a panel of fire chiefs to help me make that decision, and then come back to you with my proposal and the rationale for the person I have selected.
Can I just ask a question, Pam? The fire chiefs would be from surrounding communities?
I don't know. I'd have to think that through a little more carefully.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin?
They've already done that. They've had you've limited, you've got a list of 5 people, and I can understand why you wouldn't want to make an appointment without interviewing them. That makes a lot of sense. But I don't think that you have to put another panel together to go over that same material again. I think your personal interviews with them, I think, would more than suffice and satisfy your ability to pick who you think is the best person for the job. So I wouldn't be in favor of setting up another interview panel, if you will. That just doesn't make any sense. And it's going to take too much time.
Well, if I could, I would like to say that I'm not a professional in the fire service. And I do rely on a daily basis on the opinion of fire chiefs and have throughout my career. It would probably just give me an extra level of confidence that I took the step and made I'm not a procrastinator. This won't be a long process from here, but I would like to to interview them again because I wasn't part of that first interview. I've read everything, and I still feel like, no, and I've met the individuals involved. I haven't spent a lot of time with all three that are internal to our Narragansett Fire Department, but I have knowledge. I've appointed many fire chiefs and police chiefs in my time, and it's a very important selection to this community, and I did just get here, and I will make that effort, but I would like to go forward with my own set of interviews, but I will take your advice and counsel.
I completely support it, and for no other reason than I think the panel, and no disrespect to Rich, but the panel was selected by Rich. That was his panel. I think he selected it for a reason, whether he, trusted the individuals based on his knowledge or having worked with them before and, had, personal experience and a history with them. I think Pam deserves the same level of, confidence, people she can rely on or whatever. So I would completely support that.
I agree. I think Ms. Nolan's able to go forward the process the way she feels in accordance with the charter, and I think this is along those lines. It's an awkward position because it comes in mid-season almost, so I think that that makes sense. Like you said, she's not a fire chief herself, so how can you just base it on your own? You could, but
Right,
it'd be helpful to have some experienced people with you. So I completely support your proposal.
Thank you.
And I do as well. I mean, you're the town manager, so whatever the process is going to be at the end, you're going to hire the fire chief, so I support what you're asking tonight.
So I was the one who put the motion on last meeting, so I hope I didn't cause a ruckus over this. But basically what I was trying to do was let the public know where we were in the process, because there was some confusion about that. And so we got that from Rich at the last meeting, which was, they had, under the ordinance, there's a committee that's put together. That committee is made of 5. Then they have a recommended list of 5 that the town manager then interviews. And then when the town manager has done that, they propose a name, and with the advice and consent of the council's role is to advise and consent. Which I think is a somewhat fuzzy. So I had 2 reasons for putting it on. One was, where were we, right? So Rich said in those 5 interviews, it was him and the old fire chief interviewed everybody. And so that's where we were. So we had 5 names. But it looks like, I think the council might feel comfortable giving direction to Pam, and Pam seems to be on this wavelength that really we're down to 3 names. Okay, so we're down to the 3 internal candidates, so our general direction is that, that's why I said establish and clarify, so we have the 3 candidates. So that's great, that was good, and then we didn't talk about part 2 because we wanted to hear what Pam had to say, so I didn't know, Doug and Pam have a different point of view on how that should look. My reason for putting the motion on was a little different. My reason was, the advise and consent role, how does that work? I've tried to figure out 10 years ago when Chief Carter was chosen what that looked like, and I haven't really gotten I don't really know yet. And it doesn't seem like the minutes are from that time are conclusive. What I want to know, I want in that advise and consent role, how am I going to vote on the person when they come to us? Like, how are the 5 of us, so we can delegate it, but at what point, I don't know what I'm basing that on if I have maybe not even met one of the 3 candidates, right? So I was going to ask, was there a way that the town council members would have the option of maybe being in the interviews just to see what's going on? And then I could advise and consent and know what I'm doing instead of, I feel it would just be a rubber stamp. But so I had 2 reasons. That was kind of my 2 rationales, but I want to see what everybody thinks about that. And I'm comfortable with what you described with the fire chiefs, but I'm struggling with advise and consent role, because what is that going to look like besides just a rubber stamp? So
I can see how advising consent would be a little confusing because, advising consent in the Senate and president, when you're electing federal judges, is a different story. But I think when I read the ordinance here, it's pretty clear. Advising consent is exercised by a vote of the town council in a public meeting.
Yeah, I agree with you, James. And when I saw this motion on the agenda last meeting, started to scratch my head about what's the definition of advice and consent. You're right, it does require a vote. You have to approve the appointment of the fire chief and a number of other officials in the town. Question becomes, what's your role in that advice before you give consent? And the way it's traditionally been handled, and if you even go look at how the Senate has done it, and that's a good example, is that the executive puts forward a name. They go through their own screening process, interview process, and put forward a name that comes to you, whether it's the Senate or the body that does an interview. You have the right to question, interview, go through whatever hearing process you want to, then make a decision on that person up or down. If it's up, the person becomes the appointed official. If it's down, it's back to the executive to come up with another name. I'm not sure that process has ever played out, Matt, where there's a pool of candidates that comes before a body that has advice and consent, and you go and interview them all individually. I have not seen that. I don't find anything in my quick research that would say that's been done before. It's more like a candidate comes before you, you interview as much as you want, then make a decision on a vote.
But when the executive branch does that, and I mean, I don't think we're like Congress, but I mean, when that takes place, like with the Supreme Court justice, a lot of the senators meet with the name. So advice and consent to me is fun. I just am struggling with it, and whether it was Pam or anyone else, a name is going to come forward to me that I perhaps may not have met. I mean, that's a level of delegation, I guess I'm just saying I'm not comfortable with. So I think in the department head, I mean, I can say, I think I've been big on the big issues, right? Deepwater, right? I was in the room with the pensions, but in the end, I delegate. I trust the department heads. I trust the town manager. But now this is a decision. Am I going to just end up abstaining if I don't? So I'm struggling with that, but I don't know what everyone's thoughts are on that. So that was my rationale. So.
And I think you have a right to meet with a candidate that once the name's put forward individually, or the council as a body can interview that candidate in an executive session, in public session. I'm not taking that away from you guys at all. I think you have the right to figure out and get to know as much about that candidate as you think is necessary to make an informed decision. And I wouldn't have a problem with you individually meeting with candidates once a candidate once the name is surfaced, or scheduling something as a body to interview and go through that person's qualifications, and then at that night or some later night make a decision on consenting or not consenting.
I'm fine with that. If we're allowed to do that, then that fleshes it out for me instead of thank you.
I'm sorry, were you okay with which part of it?
I'm okay, like, we'll be able to talk to the person. Each of us can talk to the person. Yeah.
Or not. I mean, we don't have, if I choose not to and give you the confidence to put the name forward and we can vote, we can do it that way as well.
You can do it individually.
'Cause I
or
don't
if
know a
the
lot
body-
about fire safety or what the duties of the fire chief are going to be. They're all great people, but I'm nervous to be in that situation as well.
So Pam, I don't need to be in the room with the fire chief, but if you're comfortable when you put the name forward that I talk to them so that I can tell the voters my rationale for when the vote comes up, that's what I was struggling with. So if you're comfortable with that and everyone else is comfortable.
I am, and
Okay.
I hope that you will have confidence in me. I've done this for nearly 25 years now. I've selected many chiefs in both police and fire, and just know that I will make the right choice.
We have confidence in you.
Thank you very much.
And is there anything to vote on?
No.
I think you just discussed it. Basically, you're comfortable with the process outlined, they can move on.
Thank you. Moving on to number 17, new business, a motion to review and approve the proposed 2014 Narragansett beach fee schedule for the 2014 season.
I'll move that motion.
Continue.
Oh, all right. I thought we were going to at least bring it to the table to talk about it. So I'll move the motion.
What's the?
Yeah, I second it so we can talk about what happened in the workshop.
But she said move to continue.
Well, you can second.
Second, and then we
I
still
second
can-
both.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're going to continue, but we wanted to give a little background. We had a
Yes, I wanna
workshop.
give
Yeah,
background,
So
too.
second, and then we can talk
Second.
about. Second with the explanation.
Second.
Why we want to table it.
You want me to talk?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, we had a workshop and.
We had a workshop earlier where we discussed the North Beach cabanas, the whole beach issue. I think some people have heard in the past meetings where I know I've said it publicly, that after the season, we wanted to sit down with Steve and have a big public forum of some kind where we go through all the fees at the beach. We go through because we had some changes this year at the beach. We had the new IDs. We had the cabanas weren't there this year. And so based on, I think, what happened at the work session, I think we kind of have to put all of this maybe together in one kind of public forum or session where we look at what's the holistic picture at the beach. So if that adequately explains, that was what I was thinking.
So we're going to table it, but I just want to say something about the fee structure and the advisory Park and Rec Board. One of the things that I have asked and hope that we put some of those important schedules and ideas through the Park and Rec Advisory as an advisory board before it comes to the council. So my question was, for the fee structures, was that a conversation that went through that advisory board? Did they vet it out and talk about it before it's on the agenda tonight?
I believe they did. I missed the last meeting because it was last Tuesday night. Ms. Rocchio is here if she would like to address that. Can you come up?
As a member of the Park and Recreation Advisory Board, we've talked about this for 2 years. It's hysterical. Like, we talk about it, but you guys have already approved it, and it goes on paper, and we have really no say. One of the biggest issues we've discussed is really the South Cabanas and the allowance of shared passes to people who don't even live in town. Like, that is a huge problem. So if you do the numbers, okay, so it's $450. You take away the beach passes that they would have to buy anyways, so that comes down to $250. Then you take away the parking pass. Now it's $200, and they have all the rights that I have. It's not, they don't want the, so that's the problem, is they don't really want the locker. They really want the privilege to come park in our lot. And so then they split the cost with their friends. It happens all the time. Like, we sold, according to the report, we sold 150 out-of-town beach parking stickers. So if you do it all out, see, what our residents don't realize, if everyone who rents a cabana was to get a parking sticker for their friend who doesn't live in Narragansett, that's like 565 parking spots. We'll never get to the beach. So that's a problem. And so we on the Recreation Board, like, we don't really feel like we have any power. Like, you know, Steve's been great. And I mean, we talk about it, but again, we don't really know how to broach you guys about it.
So do you make an advisory recommendation that comes, I mean, at the end of your meetings? Is there a group, the Park and Rec, do you have some kind of conclusion at the end of your meetings? We looked at this fee structure, we agree with it, we disagree with it?
Well, we'll talk amongst ourselves, but I don't know if we vote things up and down, but did we vote this up or down this week?
It's not good if we're asking about that.
I may have, but I don't think we voted on this particular issue.
So just at some point, I think the process should be, the advisory is advisory to the Park and Rec director. So that's important, that there's a discussion.
But that's a big, like, so if we say to you, we advise, so our thoughts are this, or I shouldn't say we, my thoughts. And there are a few of us who agree. So my thought is this: I think that it's a ridiculously low fee for $450 to then be split with another person. I think that's ridiculous. You have a locker, that's your locker. It's not for you to give it to, whoever. So you either don't share. I mean, I'm not for, don't get me wrong, it's there to make money. So it's not like I don't want out-of-towners to come, but if they're gonna come, they're gonna pay more than me. I just want them to buck up. So that's
so at this
so again,
point,
it's not about the fee structure so much as the business model, right? And so it's a broader conversation.
It's really like it sounds kind of simple, but then you will get some pushback. But what I was dealing with is strictly out of towners, strictly that South Pavilion, and strictly that sharing of if you don't even live in the same household, why are you getting, I could see if your kid needed a beach sticker or something, that's one thing. But that's a lot of logistics right there. Like, who's allowed,
These are policy conversations, right?
Right.
So at this point, we do need to review the schedules, I think, in more detail. That's fair to say.
Right. But again, this topic has been, I've been on the Park and Rec Board 2 years. It's been gnawing at me, and it just seems to slip away. Like, oh, you approved it again? How did that happen? So it's
we're not going to do that tonight, then. We're not going to let it slip away. We're going to table it for a later date, and there'll be more discussion to come.
And maybe more of a public forum instead of a workshop, like what we use the term workshop a lot, but maybe to see, because there's splits on this out there. People are very split about, yeah.
Like, people share the North Cabanas as their town residents. I don't care. Like, that doesn't bother me. It's the out-of-towners. Like, it's just an issue.
And just one last thing, because we did have a workshop tonight on the cabanas, so that also has an impact on the fee structure, so we really need to table it for all of the reasons that we've just discussed tonight, so.
And when do you want to table it to?
When do we need to make how long do we have, Steve?
Yeah, that's. I feel like not a lot of time on this either.
Good evening. And you're right, Glenn, it is two different issues. One is a policy issue and one is a fee schedule issue. I wasn't quite sure. The fee schedule is kind of important because we need to get our documentation, our brochures, and our website and things going for 2014 relatively soon. The policy issues, as you know, we actually addressed last year. The policies have been something that have been going on for many town councils. It's something that I inherited when I got here. We tried to tweak those policies when I got here because they were very confusing. If you remember, last year I came before you. They were confusing to the sales office staff. So we didn't change anything. All we tried to do is clarify some of those policies. To be quite frank, the South Pavilion, the waiting list does go to non-resident, and Maria she's absolutely right. When it goes to non-resident, people are getting them just strictly for that parking pass. We don't have a lot to do with that. I mean, that's a policy that I cannot change. So there is a policy program that we need to look at, but then there's the fee structure. So that's something that is in depth. It takes a lot of work, and there's a lot of sides to this. So it's something that we need to get done and relatively soon, to be honest with you, if we want to move forward for 2014. Well, we're actually working, if you ask Deb Durder in my office, we're actually working into non-residents this past year. Residents won't take the South Pavilion at that fee.
Well, we'll go through all that at some point.
But how long do we have for the collateral? Like, how long do we have to get the brochures out?
Well, if you remember, we waited pretty long last year because of the hurricane. We actually went into February last year. But again, the sooner the better. I really would like to get this going. That's why I kind of pushed the envelope to get the fee schedule on tonight. I didn't really think there was an appetite to raise the fees. That's why I kept them level, because if you remember, what I've been saying is that in spite of the bad weather we had in June and July, May and June, and the terrible Labor Day weekend, we actually did quite well with our revenue this year, despite the bad weather.
So can we look at next month for the fee structure?
Yeah, but will it be a workshop? Is that what you're looking to do?
Of course. I'm just going to ask you to speak at the microphone if you want to talk. Thanks. I think we're pretty busy.
Can we do something before? Can we do something like the first meeting in December for a vote, but have a workshop ahead of that?
Before?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Would that work?
Yeah.
Vote on the fees first meeting in December, but try to have a workshop ahead of that?
That would be great. If we could have a workshop middle of November, that would be great.
That sounds good.
And I'm not here the 18th.
That's correct. It would be, yes, right, where the Rec Advisory Board, I believe, is meeting the 12th, correct? Yep.
So it will be before December.
Yeah.
Maybe do the public forum at the first December meeting, and then before the first December meeting, and then vote the second December meeting.
Makes sense. I think we're pretty booked for a while.
Yeah, we have a lot of
in
stuff.
November. So workshop, the first meeting, the December 2nd, and then the vote on the 16th?
That would be fine. I think we can make that work.
Yeah.
There is a lot to cover. I mean, when you get into the details, there is an awful lot to cover, and I don't want to miss any of those details, because people take this, as you all know.
And the advisory board meets in November, I believe? Is that right?
The next rec advisory board, I believe, would be the day after Veterans Day, which would be that Tuesday. It's usually the Monday, but it would be that Tuesday night.
All right, so,
So that's good.
yeah, it works out.
Do you want to make that a little earlier than 6:30? Do you think an hour is enough?
I think an hour and a half, really, right?
That, I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, me too.
6 o'clock on December 2nd? And an item on the agenda on December 16th. Someone like to make that motion?
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 18, a motion to approve the annual contract for technical support for the police department's computer software system with TriTech Software Systems in the amount of $14,585.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 19, a motion to approve the replacement and repairs of the existing 24-inch storm drain on Secundit Boulevard to be completed by George Sherman Sand and Gravel, utilizing the miscellaneous repair and construction contract in an amount not to exceed $81,595, and to approve the waiver or modification of the $50,000 limit.
I'll move that motion.
Second with a question. So I appreciate that the total value exceeds the 50,000, but there's two POs here, which each individually wouldn't have. So why are we aggregating them, or are we just being overly honest, or what's the, I mean, I realize they're part of the same project, but why would we structure them in two POs to start with?
Again, I'm going to have to call Mr. Ousterhout at this point in my tenure here. I can't comment on this.
I'm trying to be transparent. Actually, it was my decision to aggregate the two components because they're intertwined to the point where it's not one job and then the other. They would both take place at the same time. So you're going to dig up a structure, you're going to dig up some pipe, you're going to replace the structure and the pipe. At the end of the pipe, you're going to dig up another structure. And so what you've got is one proposal for structures and one proposal for the actual pipe laying.
Okay. I mean, it just seems odd that you do two proposals, that's all. I get it. I mean,
I think just, you know, they could have been on one as two separate items on the same proposal.
okay. Thank you for being transparent.
I have one question.
Sure, Doug.
Public Works has been working down there. Is that the same project, replacing that drain?
No, we've been doing other smaller repairs, some pavement patching that's deteriorated around existing structures.
Oh, okay. All right. The other question I had is, when we toured your facility over there, that pipe, is that what's going in the ground? That corrugated, is it a rubber pipe or something?
It's a high-density polyethylene pipe, which
That's replacing the metal pipe that's all rotted
Yes.
out now? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner?
A couple of comments on this motion. Again, the money that goes to these type of contracts is time and materials, and none of the bids quote any time and materials. They're just open-ended. You know, one of them is just tap into existing basins, rebuild top of basin, reset and cement, frames and grates. Material includes brick, cement, and sand. Price. Where is the X amount of hours for operators, X amount of hours for laborers? We have all these emergency contracts in place, and then we keep getting quotes that we approve that are non-specific. So how do we go back and then figure out if what was said was actually done, you know, what they said they were going to do was actually done? If basically we just have open-ended contracts.
Well, that work is being supervised by the Department of Public Works. That whole project, according to the report I have here, they supervise all that to make sure that the quality of work and all the
And they
pipes
keep the time,
are
and
in place.
they keep track of
I'm
all
not
the
sure
different-
what their records are,
Yeah,
what they
so
keep,
I'm
but
just-
I know that they are actively involved with the actual construction of the project itself.
Yeah, I have a little question that in quoting big projects before myself, that anything that has to do with any kind of engineering or any kind of contract, there's specifications, there's items, there's guarantees, there's expectations. If you guys are okay with this, I understand that, but I'm just wondering how they tie up that you give contracts out to people, and it doesn't seem like their quoting procedure matches up with the procedures that were established to have them be preferred vendors. Thanks.
Thank you.
So I just want to say I'm not really too familiar with what should be on the bid, but I guess a question to Mark as far as, I mean, it does seem somewhat limited, and I have to agree in the sense it says bricks and it says, you know, different materials, but it is a little limited. Is that up to the discretion of, you know, the way the bids come in? I mean, does it have enough information on it?
I've not studied the bid, but I understand the process is that we go out to bid on the miscellaneous repair contracts and get unit prices for all the various things, you know, pipe, brick, electrical, plumbing. And then when we have projects that are below the $50,000 threshold, or with your approval over the $50,000 threshold, the various departments will ask for a proposal from the contractor. We'll then verify quantities, hours, rates, et cetera, to make sure it matches. I believe that's what Jeff does with David if it's a public works project. They can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the way it typically works.
That sounds great. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Number 20, a motion to approve a contract with Prism Energy, an authorized agent for National Grid for replacement boiler and new energy management system for Town Hall in the amount of $195,791.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Excited about the boiler. Excited about the boiler.
This is a proposal from the engineering department and Mr. Austerhout. It's going to pay itself back in 22.6 years through energy cost savings. And the boiler is from 1920, is that correct? 1920. Oh, what do you know? If this one only lasts that long. Mr. Wojciechowski?
I thought I read in the documents that maybe that old boiler may be replaced by 3 efficient boilers, which is very, very prudent engineering. But still, the 3 boilers at $200,000 just seems excessive to me. And I can see maybe $30,000 a boiler. It just needs to be double. So is this only for boilers, or is this all the lighting? You know, I get upset when I hear National Grid. You know, they're the ones that offer 24 cents to deep wind. You know, I get upset when I see those guys. There's a lot of money, and I don't know for sure what's happening. But I'd just like to know if that's only for 3 boilers, and if it is, I think it's wrong. Something's wrong there, I think. I'd like to see another. What happens is we don't have 2 other bids. You know, we don't have a 3-bid system to vet this thing. You know, where's our 3 quotes so we can verify that 195 is in fact correct? You know, when you go to single source, you're susceptible to paying astronomical, terrible numbers. And this is too much for 3. I think it's too much for 3 boilers. But if I want to see quotes. That's all. I just want, as a taxpayer, I want to see 3 quotes for all the work that has to be done. You know, Prism Energy, let them give us 3 separate. I want to see 3 separate quotes on the installers, the fellas doing it, boiler installations, plumbers. I want to see the 3 quotes. That's all.
You're right, there's not 3 here, Stanley, but you remember the first one we got from Johnson was almost 300,000.
I know, and this is a step in the right direction, but it's not far enough. You know, this is too much for 3 boilers, I think. You know, I just think so. I mean, in a house, we're not talking 100,000 BTUs, and I end up spending $22,000. You know, but I can see 30,000 a boiler.
It's not just for the equipment, right? So it's the install and the,
Install,
right?
no. If we had, at least if we had 3 quotes, I'd feel comfortable. Then I could sit down and say, fine. Let's do it in the future anyway. I think we're getting messed up here. I'm not so sure. I think we're overpaying. So let's try and change our methods here somehow.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner.
Did you guys look at the shaded portion of the payback? It's really 2 jobs here. One is controls. The control payback is about 2 years. The payback for the boilers is 40 years after the useful life of the boilers, using the terminology that was used for the gas boilers that are in place right now. The 3 gas boilers online are about $6,000 a piece. And what the proposal is to do is to put the boilers in one room, keep the old boiler in the other room, hook up the new boilers around the new boiler, then go into the old boiler room, take the boiler out. So of that 200,000, 150,000 is for the boilers that are going to pay off in 65 years. The controls portion of it, which has the savings in electricity in addition to the savings in the natural gas, is what kicks the savings up on that. Now, there's no enumeration of exactly where the savings comes from. It doesn't say exactly how many, what the gas usage is now, what the gas usage will be in the future, where the savings come from on the controls. Is that turning down the thermostat 2 degrees, which is about 4% per degree? So when you look at this proposal, what I was saying before in my initial text was we don't always look at the big picture. We look at this and we say, oh, it's 200,000 compared to Johnson Controls, which was 300,000. But what is the cost of getting 3 boilers installed? That costs $25,000 to buy. Is it $125,000? Is it easier to just pull the old boiler and put the 3 in the room where it is now, put in the fire safe door? This also doesn't count the controls for the boilers. You'll see when you go through the contract that there's a line that says controls provided by other vendor. So what I tried to make the point in the first beginning of this meeting was we have to actually look at what's being said, and we can't always go to the conclusion and assume that the conclusion is right, so therefore all the information above the conclusion points to spending $200,000. If we break this apart, it certainly makes sense to do the control portion for $50,000 and get it paid off in 2 years. But to look at the $150,000 portion for 3 boilers that cost $30,000 at the most.
Thank you, Mr. Gardner.
Okay?
With all due respect, had we done that, Mr. Gardner, we would have gone with Johnson Controls, because I think they had an overall payback of somewhere in the neighborhood of, I don't think, $2 million for that project.
Any further discussion? Oh, Ms. Nolan.
I did look at the big picture, and I did notice exactly what the gentlemen have pointed out, that I wanted to know how it was procured, because it's a lot of money. And I did spend time with the purchasing agent, and she did considerable time for me checking on the, with National Grid. And we did choose National Grid through a competitive process. They chose Prism. They bid it out and got the competitive. And I did find out that indeed the price originally would have been at least $100,000 more. But everybody, the purchasing agent and I have a deep background in purchasing myself. We're satisfied with this after the work was done. So it has been vetted further.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 21, a motion to approve a cost-sharing agreement with the Town of South Kingston and the Union Fire District in order to retain the services of a financial consultant to review and evaluate the proposed United Water of Rhode Island rate filing.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
This is based on the increase in rates proposed by United Water and the challenge that South Kingston's begun and we are joining in.
Yeah, we've intervened and we need expert testimony in order to present.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 22, a motion to consider the request from Briggs Farm Improvement Association for a water line easement on the Sunset Farm property.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Yes, this is a Briggs Farm Association, so I wanted to ask, probably have Jeff come up at some point, and then the members of the association come up and describe what their request is.
Who first?
Do you want to give us an overview?
Would you like to come first? So, and also, so this is what's going on with this. There's a, at the edge of our Sunset Farm, which borders Briggs Farm, the Briggs Farm Association wants to get potable water to their kind of harbor marina area, which they don't have right now, and they have to go through Sunset Farm to do that. And it would be just along the edge. There's a stone wall, I think in the packet, there's a stone wall that describes that edge. So they came forward, and then Jeff, I met with Jeff to discuss what the engineering department's view was of it, and then it was also put on the Land Trust agenda last Thursday because the Land Trust is the proprietor, overseer, slash, still working on what their role is, but yeah, the overall guardian of the Sunset Farm Kinney Bungalow. So we, the Land Trust was in favor of the idea. So Jeff, do you want to come up first, or just to describe anything?
Does anyone have any objection to it?
Yeah.
I mean,
No. Any objection?
It's just the easement.
if the Land Trust approved it, then, and you approve it, so.
All right, so the only thing will be that they, yeah, so we can just move the motion.
Like any comment from the association? Sometimes it's just better to sit down. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Freshwater Harbor.
Number 23, a motion to authorize placement of the referendum bond question authorizing the town of Narragansett to finance the renovation project for the public safety building and to issue $2 million bonds and notes therefore on the November 2014 election ballot, and directing the town solicitor and town clerk to take all necessary action to effect such request.
I'll move the motion.
Second.
We need to discuss a couple of things. So we had a workshop on the bonds, and we kind of concluded at that workshop that we were going to put a few on the agenda to talk about, but I'm feeling like we need a little more discussion about each bond. So at the workshop, we talked about the debt and the financial aspect, but we needed to kind of hear more and wanted the public to hear more about each of those projects. So I'm going to ask the council if we cannot vote on any of the referendums at any time until we hear them all and they're presented to the council and the public. So I guess we have the public safety on here and the fire truck, and there were some other referendums that we were going to discuss. So all up for discussion tonight. I was kind of surprised to see it on for like a motion to vote on, so I didn't know if anybody reviewed or thought of something different that happened at the workshop.
That workshop was extremely frustrating and inconclusive, and that was before you had started, Pam. But and it was where we were supposed to prioritize our bonds, and I wish that we had just waited till you had started to do that, because we now have a situation where we don't have priorities. We want to hear the details on these, but that meeting was just, it didn't give us any guidance. So,
and I would tell you that there was a subsequent meeting with the Finance Committee where they were also feeling a bit sort of blindsided, because they have this sort of list of potential debt without a lot of color around what is all this, and a bit, you know, like we were, and trying to figure out how to get context and grounded in it. And they were informed, you know, that there would be meetings and, you know, looking for guidance, basically. So similar paradigm.
I mean, we could set, there's a few options. We could get the feedback from Dean tonight on this particular one. We could put all these together in a meeting, one night or a separate night, where we have all the you know, I mean, you know, we need to know, and we need the people to come forward to what, because we have a list of 5 or 6 bonds, and we need the people to then say, okay, these are the ones that they feel strongly about, and we know there's different constituencies that feel strongly about different bonds, and if we do them as one-offs, we're going to just vote for all of them. That's what's going to happen. So, I mean,
or if we put them on the same night, you might vote for all of them the same night. You never.
We might. I mean, we might, but I think we'll get a sense of like what the priorities are. You can compare and contrast more readily. Yeah. You know which one. So, but I don't know. I don't know procedurally how people want to proceed with that.
Chief Hoxie, give us. We got the overview of the budget process. We put this off from the budget to now. Chief Hoxie, give us an overview. I mean, I think we have a sense of it, but maybe people out there don't. Would you mind doing that, Chief?
Good evening.
Welcome.
In the last budget process, we started our view of what we need to do to our building to bring it up to code, to bring it up to an accredited level. We are in the process now of seeking our State of Rhode Island accreditation. We have several deficiencies going back to when the building was built in 1979. One of those is the cell block.
Excuse me, will you turn that light off, please? Thank you.
One of the issues is our cell block processing area. We no longer have a Sally Port, which is used for several things, including vehicle recovery, storage and maintenance, and transfer of prisoners. As we went through with the assistance of Jeff, we hired Northeast Collaborative. They've done been through the entire building, done a specs program and package that we can now go out to bid with. Their estimate on the cost of work was somewhere in the range of $200,000. Initially, it was $2 million. That's better. $200,000 was taken out of it as part of the Motorola project. There are another item that you approved tonight with Galaxy. We're trying to pick off some of the smaller items with grant money as we go along here to get some of these jobs done in the meantime. But ultimately, for your decision and the voters' decision is, do we want to put the money into our infrastructure we presently have, bring the building up to an acceptable level that will meet the standards of today in law enforcement, and preserve the building for another 20 to 30 years? Or our last estimate on a new building was somewhere north of $11 million.
Any questions?
Richard, behind you.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you, Chief. Mr. Vegamish.
Yeah, I'm on the Finance Committee, and I think Glenna reported. I do want to recommend Derek Gomes' article pension costs will be a factor in bond decision to you. October 17th, South County Independent, a real good job of this. The committee is unhappy, and I'm more unhappy with the accounting groups. The specific one is the Government Accounting Standards Board. And maybe if you give me a minute or two more, I could explain this to you, attempt to. The Government Accounting Standards Board is 20 to 30 years behind what the private sector organization, the Financial Accounting Standards Board, has done as far as other post-employment benefits. About 25 years ago, FASB said, if you do it, you have to record the unfunded liability as long-term debt. Almost every private sector company ended other post-employment benefits with that particular FASB. GASB chose not to do anything. It is still diddling on forcing us and municipalities generically to put this as debt. What the town calls debt in its overall governance structure is bonds payable. And certainly bonds payable is debt, but it is not the only long-term debt we have. We have unfunded pension liabilities, and I'm just using a rough figure, 30 million, because there have been changes made, and we don't know the effect of the changes precisely. We have an OPEB, let's say, of 60 million. Again, that may change. And we have a bonded debt of 20. We have debt of $110 million, but when we do our internal statistics, we only look at the $20 million. Now, I blame this partly on GASB. GASB passed an incomprehensible, comprehensive accounting financial report. I'd rather call it the incomprehensible accounting financial report. There isn't, maybe, I think more people understand Einstein's theory than can read what we have put together, not us, but at the behest of the Government Accounting Standards Board. We don't know what we're doing because no one understands the overall statements. Now, when we take a look at this, we have to change our records to reflect debt in a realistic term and in a realistic amount. If you just take $20 million, we're in great shape. But when you add the other two to it, we are in the process of dying by debt. This is death by debt. And and you will find that here I'm speaking as an individual, a taxpayer. I am going to oppose every single bond issue, including this one that we come up with, and I'm going to oppose the bond, the street improvement thing as well, until we take a good, honest look at what our long-term debt is. It's not 20 million, it's 110 million.
Thank you. Mr. Wojciechowski.
You know, sometimes I don't mind going on bumpy streets because it slows the traffic down. They don't speed. So I think Dr. Vangamish may have a good idea on that. Reduce the amount of money on our streets, I guess. But first I want to commend the chief. I was happy to hear that he's been looking at doing it piecemeal, little at a time. Do what you can, a little at a time. The stuff that's high priority, hit it first. $2 million, forget it. Forget it, $2 million. We got to look at alternatives. What's the alternatives? I don't want to build another jailhouse to specification by some federal spec. I don't want to do that. have we talked to South Kingston again? I brought this up before. South Kingston has a beautiful jail over there. They got a big building over there. Why can't we partner up with South Kingston so every time we need a jail, we just drive over there and use their jail, rent it out, rent their jail. I don't want to build a jail, I want to rent their jail, or at least hear what the numbers are. You know, I don't think we have 30 or 40 prisoners, but if we do, what's the cost per prisoner? Put them over there, back and forth. So we have the options here. And one option is not to spend $2 million. The option is do what he's done up to now. Hit it a little at a time, a couple $100,000 a year as we go. Pay as you go. No more mortgage. Mortgage is that's no good anymore. Forget that idea. No more bonds, no more mortgage. Pay as you go. Don't shift the blame to the next council, to the next taxpayer. No. Live within your means now. And that's what he's done up to date. Let him continue to do that. Feed him $200,000 a year to live within his means. We don't need a jail there. I don't think we need a jail there. We're not Providence, except for a couple of drunken students once in a while. Maybe, I don't know, you know. But let's look at some options. At least follow up on this one in South Kingston. Or maybe it's Charleston. I don't know who's got the best jail. Right now, this has got the nicest looking building around. Let's try them out. Thank you.
Thank you. So if we're going to do this in a global manner with all the items, probably have to be later November, early December. You said which meeting you're not going to be at?
18th.
So, any suggestions?
Well, Mr. President, one of the problems we had with that was they need the time to prepare the stuff for the General Assembly. Wasn't that one of the issues we discussed at our meeting?
Yeah.
So the later you go, I thought February, does that stand out as the date?
They need,
deadline for the General Assembly?
Well, town bills can, I wasn't at the work session, but town bills typically can't come in at any point in time. The question becomes, is there enough time left in the session to complete whatever review and approval needs to take place? So the later you go, the more risk you have of adjournment. However, January, February, March are usually pretty safe to get most town legislation through. So if you go to January, February, I think targeting February submission is probably pretty good benchmark to use to make sure we have enough time to get through the committee and answer any questions that the Finance Committee may have, if they have any.
Yeah, so the timeline was a couple in October, a couple in November, and then for each meeting, we were going to do 2 and have people come up and explain the bond. And then in February, then it would be time to go further with the legislation. So I'd like to use that time to let the public learn about the projects and have a conversation. And I don't know how they would determine which 2 are talked about before the others. And fair and equitable, is it one night where we hear the rest of them, or?
Well, we've got to schedule the executive session with the library first, because it's already like they're like on the second tier. Right, but we need to do that because then everybody would be treated equally, right? Because they've relegated to second priority because they haven't even had their session.
And if you recall, the sewer one was a big deal because the Jerusalem people, many of them go to Florida or south for the winter, so that needed to be an earlier.
Yeah, so maybe rearranging the order that would be important.
Was originally scheduled.
Yeah, because that one's at the end.
So when should we continue this to? December 2nd? Can we fit them all in on December 2nd?
I think that was too late for
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. I think that needed to be a November one.
I mean for the, to discuss them all at once.
Oh, the vote.
Right. I think we can get through everything in November as this part of it is, and then have a agenda item or 5 agenda items for each one on the 2nd. Does that make sense?
Separate work session to talk about all of them?
I was just thinking about agenda items.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Mr. Masowski.
3 minutes.
Sorry, I just caught in the last part of this. New police station. By the way, my name is John Mostowski. I'm from Rhode Island, Narragansett, Johnston, Silver Lake, Owls Avenue, Jamestown, Block Island, from my Sicilian mother 57 years ago. Anyways, Northeastern University, law degree, undergraduate.
Stick to the topic, John.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
A couple of weeks ago, I asked one of the members, town council, who runs the town, and he told me the town solicitor. We're trying to find out who is the highest paid employee of the town.
Mr. Mastowski, you're going to talk about the agenda item, please?
See, we went through all this bond issue with the state, and you can ask Steve Wright and whatnot. All bond issues, a lot of what happens is that a lot of the money goes into people's pockets. All the people's pockets.
Mr. Mastowski, I was going to ask you if you want to,
Excuse me, sir.
to approve the item or
Just to
not.
give a little bit of more credibility, I took the oath of constable, 1982, 4th District Court, Judge Jerry Liberty, Washington County, private detective investigator, licensed under the town of Narragansett, retired, by the way, at age 55, juvenile correctional officer, maximum security, Rhode Island State Training School. I'm blind in one eye due to a off-duty Block Island police officer who was on steroids. We sued Block Island and we won. We sued the establishment and we won. I'm not homeless. People think I'm homeless. People think I'm in the FBI. I went to LaSalle Academy where I had aspirations of becoming a priest and a Christian brother.
Mr. Mastowski, you have a minute left.
Thank you. I got 2 all-American kids. And by the way, we're all here for the kids, right? And what a beautiful calendar here with the kids, our kids. And these pictures should be around here because we're making decisions for our future and the future of our kids, aren't we? Statistics on this, I just read this earlier. They're giving statistics. I like to see the statistics of how much gas is used by the police cars, of which 108 Point-Judith Road people look at as the Dukes of Hazzard at night. Terrible. Violation of civil rights goes on, illegal profiling goes on, and we want to expand a $20 million police station? We should decrease it. This is not Providence. We want to lessen the crime.
Your time is up, sir.
The kids around here are afraid.
Your time is up.
And I can go on and on about different police chiefs in the state of Rhode Island. And the team that's sinking our state and this town is made up of lawyers, attorneys, politicians, judges, law enforcement.
We'll take a break. Thank you very much.
And state jobs. Thank you.
We're back. Anyone have any further discussion?
Where did we leave off as far as how we were going to address these bonds?
Well, we're going to address each one at separate meetings through November, and then on a single date in December, we will vote on each one at the same meeting.
Same night, yeah.
As agenda items, whether to up or down to put them on the ballot or not.
Okay, and if we could just make sure that Jerusalem is
Next.
because of the people that go away. So as Pam's walking back in the door, we're talking about the bond items, and if we're going to talk about a few each meeting, if we could put the Jerusalem sewers on the next agenda, that would be appreciated.
So we'll make
Pam, did you get that?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you got that. Okay, thanks.
So we're looking for December 2nd for this to be continued as an agenda item to approve up or down. Someone like to make that motion? Or
So
Wait,
moved. Oh.
I'm sorry, just say that last part again. We're putting a few on, and then you said something else.
we'll continue this or table this until December 2nd.
Yeah, so there'll be no votes, yeah.
Correct.
So I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 23A, a motion to authorize the placement of a referendum bond question on the November 2014 election ballot, which act authorizes the town of Narragansett to finance the purchase of a fire ladder truck and to issue $950,000 in bonds and notes therefore on the November 2014 election ballot, and directing the town solicitor and town clerk to take all necessary action to effect such request.
So I'll move this for discussion.
Second.
So I just thought when we had the workshop that we had talked about not moving forward with the bond on the fire truck. Am I missing something? Just I mean, is that part of,
I don't think we made any decision.
yeah, but
That was
we,
the problem
yeah,
with
so
the
we didn't
meeting.
make a decision, so
Right.
I was kind of surprised it was here for a bond, actually, so, right? So I thought we kind of didn't conclude that. I don't know, you guys were all there, but I thought the fire truck was maybe, we were gonna do it a different way. Maybe some of the staff can help remember that piece of it, but I don't remember us.
I think, Susan, it wasn't specific to the fire truck. I think the whole thing was inconclusive in that we didn't set priorities. So I don't feel that one was, the only thing that I felt was singled out was the library because they hadn't even met with the old town manager, so.
Looks like
Hear
Dave's.
from Chief Arnold and Mr. Goodrich. I don't know who wants to go first.
Matt, didn't we, and Susie, didn't we say that we talk about the ladder truck going out to referendum and that we would purchase the engine itself?
You did, and
Ann's nodding her
this is
head.
the ladder truck. 23A is the ladder truck. The next item is the pumper.
Okay.
But the ladder truck was discussed as going out and putting it as a bond issue.
That's what I remember the conversation, and the engine company was,
Did
we
we
were gonna pay
decide
for
that, or
that,
did we just
going
talk?
to-
without referendum.
Proposal on that was to do a lease purchase over 5 years.
Lease purchase over 5 years,
Yes.
that's correct, yep.
Okay, so we had consensus on that from the council.
That's what we talked,
I-
that's how I
we-
recall it.
I heard that, I wasn't sure that we
I
had
get it now.
consensus. I wasn't sure, so I just wanted to make sure, again, that we all understand and we agree on that.
I thought we were going to discuss all of them at separate times. That was my impression.
I heard there was a buy one, lease one, and whether it was a bond it to buy it or pay it out of cash to buy it was yet to be determined.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I was confused when I saw it. So I think we need to kind of understand it before we make a decision on it.
Chief?
I know you guys were all there together. Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the fact that there are two different issues. The ladder truck was supposed to go to bond, from what my understanding was in the work session, and the fire engine, which is the pumper, was the one that we were gonna do the 5-year lease purchase on. And the reason why we were doing the bond on the ladder truck is because by the time it gets voted on, if it passes, goes out to bid, and the ladder truck is built, it'll be just about 2016. The ladder truck now is a 1986, that'll put it 30 years old, and it has reached the end of its serviceable life. And that's why it was put on that's why I was asked to get the information for the bond. So that's basically all.
And is this the truck with the, that was at the open house this weekend with the really tall ladder?
Yes, yes. Okay.
What is the point of that truck for our purposes in Narragansett?
The reason why we have it such a high ladder isn't for height, it's for reach. We do have to reach houses that are far from the street, especially in the center of town. We do have some areas on Beach Street. We have to get to the front of the condos over on Beach Street. They are 4 stories high, and that'll reach the front there. But that truck was purchased for the reach capability instead of the height. It wasn't really purchased for height. That will actually extend at a pretty low angle, and you can go to a 2 or 3 story Victorian in the center of town and reach the roof, reach a window to get people out. You can't get that truck in the driveway on most of these houses due to the way the driveways are with the pillars at the end of the driveways. It's too narrow, so the truck can't get in. So you have to do it from the street, and that's where the reach comes in, because most of those houses are about 40, 50 feet away from the street.
So, again, at the workshop, there was a lot of conversations. I don't remember any conclusive direction from this council. And please help me out, you have colleagues, because we had a lot of conversations, but we never really concluded completely, because we spent so much time talking about the debt and how we were going to handle that piece that we didn't really, and the ladder truck in both conversations came up a little bit, but nobody ever really gave a clear direction. I think maybe Rich might have to the staff, but I don't remember us as a council having any direction on any of the referendums to this
No,
point.
we didn't, you're right.
Okay, so
Okay,
just,
that's-
I was there, and sometimes I miss stuff, but I just want to be clear on what we have here in front of us tonight was not decided on by this council. It was maybe from the manager. I don't know.
Anything else, any other questions?
No, I'm
you have
sorry,
for
I'm
me?
just struggling. I
Okay.
just want to bring us to
Right.
a place where we understand and we're building consensus on what we want.
So we're starting tonight. The meeting was inconclusive. That's
Chief, I
open
have
to
some
that.
other questions, but I
Yes.
think we can,
Hold on.
I think I'll wait until we have a meeting and discuss those individual
Okay.
trucks.
All right, I'll have more information for you at that time, too.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Steve.
Mr. Vangermish.
Private sector rules in accounting are quite clear. A lease is a long-term debt, and if this, perhaps it's a 5-year lease, this is going to count as debt. This is another thing we ignore, and I really don't blame anyone in the town because it's been loose nationwide, but long-term lease payable is a debt. It counts in your debt structure. Now, we have taken the traditional route and just blinding ourselves to bonds payable. Long-term lease payables are long-term debt.
So at this point, you don't want to discuss whether you think this is a legitimate bond item? I mean, I think that we probably should get to the bottom of some of it. I mean,
Yeah,
That'd be
I
my-
don't
that'd
mind
be my preference.
discussing it, but we don't want to take any
right, I mean,
votes on, right? So, yeah.
we've established it, haven't we? I mean, we're going to discuss it. That's the whole point. And then we'll vote on it later on.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
good,
point.
so we're done, right?
Well, I mean, don't you want to, do you have any questions? I mean, now's better than, I mean, why wait?
No, I'm good.
You have any questions? I mean, it's going to be a long night on December 2nd. If we have any questions, I might as well ask them now.
Or if the public has some questions, stand.
So a motion to continue to December 2nd?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 24, a motion to adopt a resolution awarding a contract for the purchase of fire apparatus pumper subject to lease purchase financing and authorizing the town manager to execute such instruments on behalf of the town.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Discussion? Mr. Wojciechowski? Do you support it or not?
No, I don't support it because I am impressed with our fire department. They take wonderful care of these vehicles. You know, they look like $1 million, and they take care of them, they maintain them. I have confidence in Chief Arnold, and I think these things can last 40 years. I don't care how old they are, they look so good. You know, a pumper is a pump. There's nothing new. A pump is a pump. Unless somebody broke the impeller, and what does it need does it need a union? What does it need? Maybe it needs something to be fixed. You know, I read in the paper, it's easier to fix a vehicle than buy a new one. So let's just fix what has to be fixed on a pumper. You know, this is not rocket science. I mean, are we just buying something new because we want it new? And that's what I think we've done in the past. Narragansett, oh, they bought new ones over there in South Kingston, so we got to buy new ones over here. No, we don't have to buy them. Just because they're buying them, we don't have to buy them. We can fix them. I think we take better care of ours. Our chiefs have been very good about that. Therefore, we don't have to buy new ones. Let's fix the old ones, whatever has to be fixed. If nothing else, I want to see the cost to repair, if there is such a repair needed on these things. I don't even see any rot on the body. You know, I mean, that's the first thing I would expect to go is the body, the sheet metal, the pump and the diesel engines. I had a cousin, I thought I told you once before, I had a cousin 1 million miles on a diesel. 1 million miles on his diesel truck. That's how long they can last, okay? And especially with the good maintenance here, I expect that it's going to last certainly my lifetime. If not, let's know about it. Again, let's have choices. The choice is what's wrong with it, what does it cost to fix it, Is there secondhand units out there for sale, maybe somebody else getting rid of that we could use? Maybe we can buy a secondhand unit that's very functional for us. We don't have to have it look so good. It's going to be functional. It's got to pump water. Doesn't have to look pretty. But right now, we got a pretty one. Let's keep it and fix it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. McLaughlin?
the information I have on the existing engine that's going to replace, the engine company is no longer in business, or they're not making parts for it anymore, or the parts are very hard to come by. That's the information that I had, and that was at the same meeting that we were just talking about on the previous issue. And that was the reason why they had to replace that particular engine. Parts are hard to come by and may not be available to fix it.
Any further discussion? Now, you guys have me confused now. Is this...
This isn't a bond item.
But are we going to vote on this one too? I mean, there's some... This is a bit, right?
So it's not a referendum. So do you want to fix the fire apparatus bumper?
I only have one other question. Are we going to keep the old engine company, the old engine, I mean, or are they going to trade that in?
The Han fire truck is not going to be kept. That's going to be sold. We're going to put it on one of the websites to try and sell it, go out to get the highest bidder for it. And Mr. McLaughlin is right. The last time that truck was at Highway to get repaired, it sat there for 3 to 4 weeks waiting for parts because they couldn't get them. So that truck, that's the main reason why that truck is up for replacement. And that truck was purchased used at the time, and we do have the records for how much it's cost us to keep it on the road since we've had it. So if you have any other questions about that.
Do we have a sense of rough value today? Market?
I don't even want to make a guess at that, just because of the fact that anyone who's going to purchase that truck is going to know the problems, because they know that Han Manufacturing went out of service.
They may buy it for
a long time,
parts,
but
maybe.
They might buy it for parts, just because they might be having the same problem, or someone might buy it to be an antique truck, because the truck, it's an '89. So, it's getting close to that age where someone might purchase it for something other than actual firefighting. Any other questions?
I just a question about the other ladder truck, the tall one. Say if you do get a new one, what happens to the old one?
That one would go out to be sold also. There may be someone who might purchase it for refurb or something along those lines. But if you refurb a truck that old, the amount of time that you can get out of it is very limited. It's like if you put the amount of money into it to refurb it, you're at the point where, should I just buy a new truck, or should I, because your end life is not going to be as long as purchasing a new truck.
That brings me back. I was going to ask this question later, but I have to ask you. 30 years in Narragansett isn't the same lifespan as the engine company in Manhattan or the Bronx, obviously. They use them a lot more. Why is this magic number 30 years that it's outlived its life? Somebody makes a decision on that, and who?
It's usually the insurance rating company that will say after 30 years they won't. It loses, your insurance rating for the town changes, usually because of the fact that the truck doesn't meet the NFPA standard. NFPA, National Fire Protection Association, has standards on everything, and fire apparatuses falls under that. I can get an exact answer for you at the next meeting.
No, the explanation's fine with me. I just didn't understand it. And 30 years, 30 years and you've got a tenth of the runs that, say, a Providence Engine Company has, why wouldn't yours be able to last a lot longer than 30 years?
Right, I
Just doesn't
understand.
make sense.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And even the Bristol, I saw some of the antiques they have over there that come from the 1800s, and they're still on the road, and they look
Right.
pretty good.
Right. Anything else?
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Motion
Aye.
carries. Number 26, a motion to schedule an executive session meeting with the Library Board of Trustees on November 4th, 2013, to discuss possible real estate options.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 27, a motion to schedule a work session with the president. I'm sorry, what?
You skipped the fire apparatus. Don't hate to go back to it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We had two. One was the lease, which you just approved. The financing, we need to approve the bid, item 25 also.
Sorry about that. Going back to 25, motion to award the bid for fire apparatus pumper to the lowest bidder, Greenwood Emergency Vehicles, in the amount of $430,553.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number
We just-
27, did we vote on 26? We did.
Yep.
Number 27, a motion to schedule a work session with the president of the University of Rhode Island to discuss ways to strengthen the partnership between the students and the town of Narragansett.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
I don't know if we have a date in mind.
I think we'd have to.
Could I just ask about this? So,
So,
is this taking the initiative, or, I mean, the
Yeah, so-
last time we went through this, there was I'm sure they'd be happy to meet with us, but it wasn't particularly productive.
yes, so I just think this year has been a little different, and since coalition is dissolved, I thought it would be important to come together and establish a strong partnership. I know that things out in the community have been brewing with the students, and just trying to reach out and find positive ways. Not sure if, Mr. Dooley will, be accessible or how soon, but I think that there are a lot of things under his leadership that we could talk about with him about, such as some of the kids at URI perhaps living the first year on campus, maybe talking about some of the ways we can use the students in a positive way, at the Bay campus and things like that. So I just put it on, thought maybe we could reach out to him and see if we could have an opportunity to speak with them on behalf of the students that live in our community that go to the university. So I don't know how successful. It's a strategy. I've talked to a lot of people that see the students in a very positive way, and there are also some difficulties or some challenges. So I don't know, Pam, how accessible, like if you were to schedule or get friendly with the president, and we could maybe kind of have a meeting just publicly to hear what we could do to improve the conditions here in the town.
I will contact the office of the president, and I will see what I can do as soon as possible. Is that when you
Yeah,
want it?
that would be great. I mean, I know everybody likes another workshop, but and again, you saw my agenda on the summary, just kind of topics really open to discuss. I don't know that we have to talk about all the police reports, but, whatever we see fit to talk about with him to kind of work together in a way that's really effective for this town.
Would you want a workshop, or do you want this on a regular agenda?
Well, I thought a workshop would be an intimate kind of discussion, and he wouldn't, when the chief read the police reports, he wouldn't be on the defense now. But, yeah, I think a workshop is a better forum to have a dialogue with him about how we can work together and what's actually happening in our town.
Yeah, see what his calendar looks like, I guess, and then we'll have to schedule it that way, obviously.
I've been told he's pretty difficult to get to a meeting, so.
I have confidence in you, Pam.
Thank you, thank you. I will
Miss-
do the best I can.
Ms. Stewart. Ms. Stewart, welcome.
Good evening. This afternoon, I did send an email to each one of you. I don't know if you had a chance to read it. When there was a coalition, we met with Dr. Carruthers at the time, and that setup was that This is when the Narragansett URI Coalition was functioning. And the setup was such that the group who came was part faculty members, Dr. Dugan, Dr. Carruthers, and the town council members. They sat at a long table with their back to the audience, and we were excluded and couldn't hear the discussion. And many people were disappointed in that arrangement. The next time we had someone come, it was, after Dr. Carruthers, then it was Dr. Dooley did come at the beginning of his tenure here at URI. And there were prepared questions we were allowed to submit. I don't know what format you're going to be using, but whatever format you decide, it will be enlightening. I feel that he's removed himself, which is unusual for most college presidents who have a community where students live off campus. They usually are very engaged on a regular basis with the community. I find the disengagement unacceptable by Dr. Dooley. And that's all I'm going to say, because you all know what else I could be saying. One other comment I want to make, and this is just to add a little humor. There's a fire truck in Eastwood Look, which a student purchased for $8,000, and he left it on the street and in the neighborhood for a few weeks. I didn't know it was there because I don't go down that particular street on a regular basis, but other people knew about it and finally asked me, do you know anything about the fire truck? So I went over and found the young man at the fire truck parked on the street overnight. And I said, excuse me a minute, why do you have a fire truck here? And he said, well, we're going to paint it. And I said, okay. And they're painting it blue. He bought it for $8,000, I want you to know. So, there's bargains out there. And he's going to use it to promote concerts. And so I just thought that, you're talking about fire trucks, I just couldn't resist this little gem that I encountered on Saturday mornings in my neighborhood. Painted blue. He's a concert promoter, this young man. Very nice young man and polite.
Thank you very much.
Can't read this stuff up.
Sure.
Mr. President?
Mr. McLaughlin.
I'd like to ask the town manager to set up an appointment with me and the chief of police at your convenience before we get involved with the president at URI. I have some issues I need to discuss with you. I think it'll probably take, I don't like to go anything over an hour, so probably a half hour will do it. At your convenience, I'm very flexible.
So on this item, I think we can just leave it up to Ms. Nolan's discretion, and can inform us later on about the progress. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 28, a motion to schedule a work session to discuss an operating plan for 94 and 95 Middlebridge Road.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
And I put this on the agenda, and I'm just going to tell you why. The last time we got together and we were talking about a bid for the kayak place, we seemed to be really confused on some issues based on the property. It was a time where we had a workshop, I think it was last February, with the land trust due to the Eddy property. It was a time when there was a transitional period for the town managers, and there seemed to be a lot of, we seem to not really have a handle on what we're doing down there. So I'd like to come back to the table to hear what we agreed on and what's not agreed on, what leases are now up, what's not, because the last meeting at the kayak bidding, there was confusion. Some of us didn't even really remember why we were going out to bid. So I think there were different groups involved at the workshop. There wasn't clarity on exactly. So I thought, Steve, it would be helpful if we had what we've agreed on today for those pieces on Middlebridge, and then our next steps, so that we all have clear understanding of what, this is a purchase that is a different piece of property in the town. And so I just wanted, for me especially, to make sure I understood Matt Eddy's lease, what's happened with the kayaks, what we're doing with the little cottages. And, you know, Pam is new. I think it would just be helpful to sort of carve out what we had agreed upon and make sure that everybody today is still in the same place. So that's why I put it on.
I think that's a good idea. The one thing is operating plan, I think, is a little ambitious. So I think, because that's saying that we're going to like write up some plan, I think we know what the issues are. I mean, I deal with the land trust and have been talking with Steve about Middlebridge. There are a set of discrete issues, and in the February meeting, we kind of didn't really do them in that discrete fashion. So it may be amending this, or that the plan is not a written plan necessarily, but that we're going to have around each issue. It's really, we've got to pick off, and Steve can maybe agree with me on this, but that we got to pick off these issues one by one. We let everything go for a year about the same, and now we've got to say, we've got all the marina, we've got the houses, the little cottages, we've got the kayak center, we've got a potential of that building that used to be Duke's. So we need that, I guess, you know, so I just think operating plan's a little ambitious. It makes me like,
right, so it could
we're
be
going to have someone
amended-
writing some
it-
plan.
No, right,
Yeah.
so it could be amended as a review or an update, because I think that we decided, we clearly talked about the management of the property. I mean, we did talk about pieces, but I feel like the purchase, Glenna were a part of that, her and I, and then we kind of came in, we had this workshop, we were transitional with the managers, and that kayak fiasco, I think, really brought to, we kind of need a review sheet. So
I'll
I didn't mean
amend
a
it,
written management plan, but I wanted to be clear on what we had decided as a council on that property, because it is a little bit different from the other park and rec things that we run in the town, because, you know, the land trust was involved, and so I just wanted to make sure we just redefined that and regrouped on it. So amend the motion.
And I'll amend it to say remove an operating plan to just, and replace with management.
Or a review.
Management and review.
And so I'll second that.
All right.
And a date.
I think we're pretty far out at this point. And Mr. Vingermish wants to speak, so I think we're looking like January 6th, if I'm not mistaken. That seems fair.
As long as nothing's expiring
Mr.
during that
Vingermish?
time. January 6th and everything.
Or later.
One part that was, Susan used the term fiasco, which, you know, may be accurate, may not be, but one thing I found very disturbing at that last meeting, and I caution you on this, was the attempt to micromanage the kayak center. I've seen previous councils try to micromanage businesses, and this is not a good idea at all, to micromanage a business over a 5-year period. And I got the sense here that the town council favored the current operator because he didn't raise prices. Raising prices, lowering prices, this is all in the precept of the company. It is not in the precept. It is not in your game. This is not a matter to be discussed with when you say a business plan, you are really saying, I want to go in there and micromanage your business. Please, you pick a person, this person operates it for 5 years. We don't touch anything to do with his operations, especially the revenue. If this person chooses to raise revenue based on his or her analysis, that's
Mr.
the way
Vingermish,
it goes.
I don't want to interrupt you but this is a little off topic. We're just talking about the management plan. Thank you. The motion now is January 6th, 2013, 6:30 p.m. All in favor?
Aye. Could I just, as a matter of record keeping, ask, now that we have all these workshops for Ann to send out for simple people such as myself, a calendar to keep track.
Thank you. Number 29, a motion to reappoint David J. O'Brien to the Towers Committee for a 2-year term that will expire on October 1st, 2015.
So move.
Second.
And Dave's an asset to the committee.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Number 30, a motion to appoint Matthew E. Melchior to the Harbor Commission to fill an unexpired term, which will expire on June 30th, 2016.
I'll make that motion.
Second. I have a
discussion?
question, James, or for Ann, really. So does that mean there's 2 alternate spots open on this commission? Okay, so you would be looking for people. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Aye.
carries. The last item is the executive session. A motion to retire to executive session in accordance with 4246-4 to discuss litigation, Russell and Marjorie Boss versus the Town of Narragansett and W. Russell Boss Trust versus the Town of Narragansett, in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 4246-5A2, and appoint Mark McSally, Town Solicitor, as Clerk Pro Tem.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Mannix?
Aye.
Ms. Bonanno?
Aye.
Mr. Callahan, aye. Mr. McLaughlin?
Aye.
Ms. Segopian?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone.